Hey, it's Sammy Ray. Welcome back to Brave Bird Astrology. Today, I just wanted to touch on probably the most important thing when you're looking at charts, okay? And that's aspects. Basically, aspects are when you look at a natal wheel and you see all these lines that are like crisscross, you're like, well, what the heck does that mean? I don't understand that. Those are aspects. It's basically a conversation that all of the planets are having together, okay? So I like to think of the natal chart as this big party, right? And you have all different types of people there and different personalities. Some of them hate each other, some of them are lovers, and some of them are best friends. And you basically just get to see the conversation of what's happening and what dynamic that creates depending on what houses everything's in. So, yes, aspects. I just wanted to touch on, I'm going to touch on stelliums as well and lump that all together in this video. But aspects, you have different types of aspects. I'm going to talk about the major ones today. And I'll also mention in conjunction because I've mentioned it in another video. So I'll touch on that a little bit. But our first aspect is a conjunction, okay? And that means it's making no angle. It's at 0 degrees. So they're talking straight on with each other. So you have two planets that are right dead looking at each other in the face, and they understand each other, and they're straight shooters, okay? So that's a harmonious aspect. So a conjunction is when you have two planets that are in same sign, same house, okay? And this goes with asteroids too. Any object that's same sign, same house. So you have to look at the degree. And it only counts if it's within 10 degrees, okay? When you get to the outer planets, such as, Pluto, and you get to the asteroids, you want to look at smaller degrees. For example, Pluto, you want to look within 6 degrees for it to really have an effect. And then asteroids, you want to look within 1 to 2 degrees, okay? So that's a conjunction. Our next one, we have a trine. So a trine, so before I move on to trine, conjunction, I don't know if I said same sign, same element, same sign, same house, right? Okay, trine. A trine is the same element but different signs, right? So what I mean by element, you have fire, earth, water, air, right? And basically they're compatible because they understand each other's natures, right? So I like to think of the trine as the friendship aspect, okay? It's like, oh, we're best friends, we're brothers, we're happy and we're singing our color. Sorry, I had to throw it back to the 90s real fast. So they're like best friend aspects, okay? When you have a lot of trines with someone, it's very harmonious. However, let's say, because I brought it into relationships. So let's say you're talking relationships, and you have tons of trines with someone, they might be more like a friend to you. But let's say within your own chart, your natal chart, that means you have two planets that are getting along, okay? So they're working harmoniously wherever they are with each other. So in that, a trine is 120 degrees, okay? So another aspect is, we're going to go into the harsher aspects now. A square. A square is where you have, it's 4 signs in between each other, right? So for example, Cancer and Libra. I have Libra sun and my moon is in Cancer, right? And so that creates friction because it's creating an angle, like a sharp angle, right? So they communicate harshly with each other. So a lot of times my inner world is fighting against my outer world. And when I first learned that, I was just like, okay? It made so much sense to me, and I was able to understand it myself a little more. But that's just one example of a square. Now, let's say you have that going on with someone else. You may not understand each other depending on what planet it is. You know, that depends on what aspect of life that you wouldn't understand them in. And it's not necessarily a deal breaker. You have to look at all the other placements and how they work with other parts of the chart. So wherever that is, it's just going to be a little friction. Oppositions. An opposition is they're 180 degrees apart, right opposite each other. And usually you see these in the partner signs. So we each have a partner sign that is like right across from us in the zodiac. So they understand each other, but they're also opposite. Like they also approach things the same way. For example, both Cancer and Capricorn are very sensitive. It's just Cancer, and they're both very good with money, like as far as making money, hoarding it, that kind of thing. But it shows up in different ways, and their motives for it are different ways. Like Capricorn is more like, oh, myself, I need this for myself, right? I need to provide it for myself. Cancer's more, I need to provide for my family, right? So they can have the same goals, but they approach it differently and for different reasons. So an opposition, wherever we have the opposition, it can create so they get along great at first, and then there are issues. So it's a good days and bad days type thing. It's either really good or really bad. So that's an opposition. And again, those are usually in opposite elements. I'm going to go back and talk about sextile, because that's another positive one. I skipped it. Sextile aspect. I mean, the first three words you hear is sex. So I like to think of it as the sexy aspect, okay? It's, it creates a little bit of a flame there. It's a positive aspect, but usually a sextile is like two different compatible elements, okay? Like fire and air and earth and water, okay? So they come together. Like, for example, earth and water make mud, baby. And fire is always boosted up by air. So wherever this is going on in your chart, that means they have a symbiotic relationship, those two planets, and they help each other out, boost each other up. And I feel like I'm missing one. Okay, so that's all of the major aspects, okay? So the minor aspects, there are a couple other minor aspects I'm still learning about myself. You have semi-sextile, you have different types of ways to say that something is in conjunct. But I just want to talk about in conjunction really fast, okay? So an in conjunction is basically, I like to describe it as, okay, it's an aspect that is adjacent to another. Like, it's basically, okay, let's say you have your 5 signs away, right? You may just not understand each other. It would be just constant miscommunication, and it would just feel like there was some kind of barrier there. Like, it was just like, think of it like you are trying to throw a rope to someone and they just can't catch it. It keeps falling through their hands. And again, they call this a minor aspect, but honestly, I would like to learn. I'm still learning more about in conjunctions, but I'd like to learn more about them just for the simple fact that I've experienced them so much. And I know that they create more problems than anything. So again, not a deal breaker, but you have to work extra hard to make someone see your point of view, and that's just frustrating. If you have someone who is like, you know, for example, like Gemini, who's like, you got 10 seconds to show me, you're not going to get through to them, you know, in those 10 seconds to explain, you know, anything. So I hope that was helpful. That was that's most of the aspects, okay? There are other ones, other minor ones, but those are the main ones that I know and I've learned. So stelliums, I wanted to talk about stelliums because stelliums, wherever you have a stellium, it creates a theme in your chart. So a lot of times you'll look, and in your chart you'll have one side more saturated than the other, right? And from that you can kind of tell, like, okay, is my life supposed to be more me oriented, or am I supposed to work more with other people? So you can kind of see what's there depending on where you have things in the chart. A stellium is basically when you have 3 or more planets sitting in the same sign, same house. So they're all clustered there having a party. Like, basically they're like triplets at a college party. Everyone wants to talk to them and ask them questions, right? So basically, the stellium is very important because it shows a theme in your life. For example, I'm just going to keep giving examples from my chart until I can find other charts that, you know, people don't mind me using. But and eventually, guys, I'm going to get an astrological wheel so you can see what's going on, and I can explain it better. But anyways, so I have a 3rd house stellium. I have my Sun, Mercury, Mars, and Pluto are in my 3rd house. That is a Gemini house, okay? And I'm already an air sign as a Libra. So that makes me extremely airy when it comes to communication, you know, my identity, my drives. I definitely need to communicate. So that's definitely a theme in my life. And neighbors, I connect with people around me. Like, I've always been the kind of person people tell me their life story, and I don't mind that, but I've always been that way, even from when I was really younger. And then I have a stellium in my 5th house in Capricorn, okay? That one is, so 5th house is house of fun, not relationships, romance, children, and dramatic arts, right? Those of you who know me, you know I do theater. Also, I love children. I've worked as a teacher, a substitute teacher. I've worked as a daycare teacher for 3.5 years, a dance teacher. I love children. I'm childlike myself in a lot of ways, but they bring me joy. But I have a stellium there, so those are themes that have occurred in my life, and of course, romance. You know, 5th house is kind of romance that doesn't last. So unfortunately, that's a theme in my life too. So you want to sit and look at those things and say, okay, what are the planets doing there, and which planets are there, and which ones are talking. So, for example, 5th house, I have Saturn, Neptune, and Uranus there, right? Uranus is unexpected things, unexpectedly pregnant, or you have fallen for unexpected people who, you know, switch up the situation, which sucks, but whatever. Neptune is which is like illusions, idealizing, that kind of thing, but it's also fantasy. I love when I create things, when I write, I love fantasy, okay? So when I create things, I add an element of fantasy in there. And then Saturn being there kind of puts a damper on your fun, on my fun just a little bit, right? And I take my creativity very seriously, okay? So that all of that is sitting in my 5th house. So you see all that there's so many ways to read themes in a chart. But I just wanted to touch on those things today. And if you have any questions, leave them down below, or shoot me a message and I'll get back to you. Have a good night.